Caris LeVert is cleared to start playing basketball again. We'll talk about what his recovery and when he might start playing for the Pacers with his injury updates today, what it means for the rest of the Pacers rotation that Caris LeVert could soon be playing for the team debuting very soon, possibly later this week. And the Pacers take on the Raptors tonight in an Eastern Conference battle. Lots to talk about and get to on today's Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and the West Side Community News. And today, finally, we get our Caris LeVert injury update. We can talk about what his status is, when he can be expected to be playing again for the Pacers, what it means for the rest of the Pacers rotation, how it will kind of evolve the way they're playing, and mostly good news there. So if you're here for LeVert stuff, get excited. It's very good news from him and his status returning. And the Pacers play a game tonight. They play the Raptors in Toronto. Nice test to kind of see where the Pacers are at in terms of legitimacy. The Raptors, a little more of a growing team who are also 1-3. So a nice test for the Pacers. And if you're on YouTube, you can see that I currently have a mustache because thank you for getting us to 250 subscribers. Not going to talk about that anymore for you audio people. Let's just jump right into the exciting Caris LeVert stuff, because that is where the good news is for the Pacers today. Caris LeVert, as you might have seen in videos tweeted out by the Pacers or Scott Agnes of Fieldhouse Files, was practicing today. He returned to practice today after he got the follow-up testing and opinions done on his back yesterday. So he was back in practice today doing contact stuff. He was doing 3-on-3 on video with media there. At the end of practice today, LeVert said he felt good during the practice. It was good to be back with his teammates. You know, last week was the first time he was doing like 5-on-0 stuff, so walkthroughs with his fellow starters and just general getting the feel for the Pacers playbook kind of stuff. So he's kind of getting into that kind of groove, but he hasn't done any contact or, you know, X number of guys versus X number of guys stuff until today. So that's a big step for him. He said it felt good to be back with teammates, and it's always good to see a guy practice again. If he's able to do media, that means he participated in the practice. He said in terms of going forward and when he'll return to play, he said he's ready to go and he feels good, but he's going to trust the medical and the coaching staff to determine his exact return to play. He is listed as questionable to play against the Toronto Raptors tonight, which is a positive sign to me that he's already listed as questionable. You know, I don't know that he'll play against Toronto. He conditioning wise, I don't know where he's at. He has been able to do some conditioning stuff during practice, and I've seen him after practice. He looks like he's in good shape. He's taking shots, right? He's not like completely going from zero to game shape, but you know, there's a level of contact and running plays and that kind of stuff that you have to get into the groove of. So it is possible that he is able to play against Toronto. I have no idea what the team and the medical staff are thinking in terms of just getting him out there. I don't know how back injuries work in terms of the risk of jumping in like that. So I don't pretend to know if he's going to play against Toronto, but if he's already listed as questionable one day after being cleared, it's at least a good sign that he'll probably be playing by the end of the week. They have a back-to-back this weekend in Brooklyn against his former team before they return home to play Toronto again. So I'm guessing we will see Caris LeVert very shortly, if not tonight against Toronto, but if not then maybe Friday or Saturday. It seems like it will be something that will be coming in short order, both given what he's been able to do leading up to this practice and what he was able to do in this practice now that he is able to do contact and stuff like that. Big boon for the team, obviously. Caris LeVert is an excellent player. Carlisle said today that he did well in that first practice, and obviously Carlisle's system that is guard heavy and has a lot of maybe not guard heavy, but has a lot of trust in the guys handling the ball to make plays and react to what the defense is allowing the Pacers to do. Caris, that kind of stuff. He established a lot of good pick and roll synergy with the Sabonis last year. He improved as a creator for his teammates as the season went along just with the Pacers, right? He clearly established chemistry with his teammates. So having a guy like that back in Carlisle's system could be good. Carlisle even said he could help defensively. I'll believe that when I see it. I don't think LeVert's not like a terrible defender, but he's certainly, at best an average defender. So we'll see how he really feels about that. But Carlisle also said he doesn't know exactly when LeVert will play in games. And remember, LeVert did default to the training staff and the coaching staff in terms of a return to play timeline. So it seems like they're just they don't know for sure if it between the conditioning level, maybe it's a pain thing, if he'll be able to play, against Toronto tonight or later in this week. It'd be cool for him to get his debut against his old team on Friday, either way. So I think, just given the facts that I know of what I've been able to see him do, what he said, how this reevaluation process works, that it will be a sooner return, but back injuries can kind of cloud out the timeline. Conditioning is always a factor that's hard to evaluate when you're not a member of the team or you're not a professional training person. So it's really hard to say. So yeah, we'll see what comes with him, but I think he'll be a good juice piece for the offense just because he can set up his teammates a little bit. In the starting five, Brogdon and Sabonis have a lot of the onus to kind of help other guys get buckets right now. Duarte has been awesome, right? He'll continue to be the story of the early Pacers season in terms of just him being so good for a rookie and really giving the Pacers this punch that they weren't really expecting to have at this point in the season. But Duarte certainly cannot create for others right now. Very looking to shoot kind of player right now, or makes the simple, okay, I'm not open, I'll pass it kind of passes, not really passing guys open or really even setting up anything. Justin Holiday is not ever going to be a guy who sets up much. Same with Miles Turner, right? So with that starting five, a lot of that onus has been on Malcolm Brogdon and Sabonis, and they've done a pretty good job of getting guys open. Justin Holiday just had his best shooting game. We've seen Duarte finish plays. Miles Turner had a 40-point game, though he did create a lot of his own shots that game. But in general, just the creation for others has not been there to the level that the Pacers have had in the past. They were a decent assist team last year. McConnell has not been as good in that department. So they haven't had that creation ability for others that you'd expect them to have, especially for a Carlisle system that has a lot of changing roles and a lot of, pass, make something happen kind of situation. So Caris, I think, will help mostly there. Scoring, they scored a bunch against the Hornets. They scored a bunch against the Wizards. They actually scored, the total doesn't say it, but they scored pretty well against a good Bucks defense without two very talented scorers in Warren and LeVert. So I think their offense has actually played pretty well this year in terms of just raw scoring. So LeVert obviously is a boost there. He's a fantastic scorer. He will push someone who's a worse scorer than him down in minutes. But I think where he will bring the most value upon his return is his ability to create shots for other guys, his ability to get into the paint and he's got a floater or he's got a decent pull up from 15 feet in a way that sucks a defender up, or he can get into the lane, draw that defender, kick it out to someone else in a way that is actually advantageous for them and not just a routine pass out because that's the next thing to do. Or, he can run a pick and roll and realize that Sabonis is going to be open if he can throw the pass at a certain angle. And I don't want to say Caris LeVert is some brilliant, out-of-this-world, game-changing shot creator by any means. His passing is good, but not like world-changing. But adding that element to a Pacers team that needs it and hasn't quite gotten it from the guys who gave it to them last year, and in a system that I think suits his play style very well, I think will be a big boost for this team when he's able to play. Who knows how much he'll be able to go at first, right? Maybe that's another factor to this is, okay, so he is able to go tonight against Toronto, but he can only play 20 to 25 minutes. Another thing we don't quite know, that's always a factor in conditioning, is how long can this guy actually play for? So these are questions we'll get answered as he plays and as Rick Carlisle speaks on what his role is expected to be. But yeah, obviously going to be a big help on offense if he, depending on who he pushes out of the rotation or lowers the minutes of in the rotation, could in theory improve the Pacers defense, like if he takes a bunch of Jeremy Lamb's minutes. So that this is just a boon for the team. When you get a starter back, you obviously get a good player back, but then the guy who's replacing that guy who now moves back to the bench, you improve your bench as well, right? So now McConnell is going to have more weapons with him, whether I'm assuming LeVert will start at either the 2 or the 3, and I want to talk about the rotation ripples momentarily, but this will also help McConnell in that someone else good will be with that second unit. Whichever center is playing with that guy will have a better second unit player to play with as well. So a lot of guys who play or who are offensively gifted for the Pacers in terms of creating shots will be aided by having another guy to either ease that pressure or create shots for them, and that's a big deal, right? The Pacers offense has been good. Now it can even be a step better. So I'm looking forward to seeing what LeVert can bring to this team. Obviously, he's very exciting to watch. He was fantastic to close last season before he was unable to play in the play-in game. So it'll be great to see how he can carry the momentum from last season into this season. Let's talk about how it could change the rotation, whose minutes could go away, who probably won't start, because that's a shakeup of this too. That they've had a decent starting five that's gone well for these first 4 games, maybe 5, depending when he comes back, and that will likely shift. So let's talk about that. But first, let's talk about the good folks over at SweatBlock, because SweatBlock is creating the best antiperspirant wipes out there that they can stop sweat for 7 days. It seems some people who listen to Locked On Podcast Network podcasts have been trying SweatBlock and loving it, and they've been paying attention to what we're saying. We have a high school teacher out there who'd pit out by 4th period in their class. They've been using the wipes now. They don't have to change shirts in the middle of the day anymore. No more second shirt. It's been great for him. A Hollywood producer who's on the set of a Marvel movie said she was working 18-hour days for weeks in the Atlanta Heat, heard about SweatBlock, started trying it, loves it. No more sweaty production days. A soccer player listener to one of the Locked On pods said that, they were sweating a lot. Obviously, playing soccer, was the wettest guy after practice, and they gave SweatBlock a shot. Boom, problem solved. True believer. You can stop excessive sweat with SweatBlock. It's doctor created and doctor recommended, and they have a dry shirt guarantee. If SweatBlock doesn't keep you dry, you'll get your money back. Not just for your armpits, chest, back, feet, hands. Use it anywhere, and I mean anywhere that sweats. If you or anyone you care about is dealing with excessive sweat, you have to check out SweatBlock. Get it for 20% off at sweatblock.com with the promo code LOCKEDON, all one word. You can also get SweatBlock products at CVS or Amazon. But why would you do that when you don't get a discount? Go to sweatblock.com with that promo code LOCKEDON today. Thank you for making Locked On Pacers your first listen today as we break down the Caris LeVert news and how it will affect the rest of the Pacers rotation, because that's a big deal. I am assuming for a lot of this upcoming segment that he will jump back into the starting 5 once he returns. He's one of the best scorers on the team. He has a natural fit with several of the starters he started last year. I mean, maybe his very first game he doesn't start as they ease him back, but it sort of seems like that he will start, given his talent level, how he fits with the rest of this Pacers team. So how do they change the starting 5? Well, Brogdon's surely a lock to stay in the starting 5, as probably are Turner and Sabonis. Those are 3 of the best players on the team. They've established some rapport as starters over a couple seasons now. So it makes sense to me that those 2 would start. So Duarte at the 2 right now, that's LeVert's natural position. And Justin Holiday at the 3 right now, not his natural position. But we've seen a couple things that make me think either of those guys could be the guy who moves to the bench. We've seen Duarte play the 3 quite a few times. Actually, that's pretty much the only argument that it could be either guy. We've seen Duarte play the 3 this season. One lineup specifically that he's played the 3 with that I want to point out here is McConnell at the 1, Brogdon at the 2, and him at the 3. So he's played the 3 next to 2 guards who handle the ball a lot, right? So his only role in those is catch and shoot or catch and handle and try to score, because he's not creating for other guys. And he's a good defender, Duarte, right? He's a rookie good defender. I have to clarify all these caveats with him. I don't want to overdo what he's giving the Pacers, but defended Jimmy Butler capably for possessions against the Miami Heat, had some nice defensive possessions on Chris Middleton. Miles Bridges, who's having a nice season, just in general has been a good on-ball defender for a rookie. So if Duarte has to play the 3 to keep him in the starting 5, maybe the Pacers look to do that, and they go Brogdon, LeVert, Duarte in the 2 bigs. I think that is a logical starting 5. Justin Holiday moves to the second unit, but still can be in those closing lineups as the 4 potentially. But with the second unit, he'd be really helpful, just as another option as a shooter, really. That second unit, Shea Brissett's shooting has been really helpful for them, but they've been counting a lot on Jeremy Lamb to be, the threat behind the arc for their bailout passes, to add in a guy like Justin Holiday, who, remember, in the preseason, before he rolled his ankle, was putting a ton of pressure on the rim. Could be a big boon for that unit. I don't think Justin Holiday is going to be handling the ball too much, but he's just a good player. He's a good player. Adding him into that second group could be valuable. And I could also see a scenario where they say, let's try Duarte with the second unit again. That's how they started the preseason. They started Lamb in that case. I don't know what's going to happen with Jeremy Lamb. We'll get to him in a second. But I can also see them doing that because We've also seen Duarte play the one kind of. I don't want to say he was the point guard, but when he's sharing the court with Brogdon, at times he's nominally been the point guard and brought it up and like initiated the action. So it's not crazy to me that Duarte could be the guy who moves to the bench and they give him a little more of a role where he can get some shots up and be called upon to do a little bit more. And maybe being that second unit chucker could be a nice fit for him as a role as a rookie when he doesn't quite have the ability to play make for others just yet. That would be the onus on McConnell there. I can see the pros to both of those, and I don't think that it doesn't really matter to me in terms of tactically which one of them you don't start. I think that you gain some advantages and disadvantages either way. But those two guys, whoever doesn't start anymore between Justin Holiday and Chris Duarte in lieu of LeVert, will still probably play about the same amount of minutes they've been playing all along. The question is who loses the minutes that LeVert is now getting, right? So there's a couple guys whose minutes I want to look at. First of all, just looking at Justin Holiday and Chris Duarte's minutes, right? Justin Holiday played 25, 20 against in the second game, but he got hurt in that game. And then 37 and then 38, right? So Carlisle clearly values him quite a bit. I don't think his minutes load will go down. Duarte played 32, 45, 41, 33. He's playing a lot. Same kind of deal. Carlisle clearly trusts him in lots of situations. He's taking a lot of shots. Like, he has value to this team. I don't see his minutes going anywhere. I pulled those pages up for that reason. Now, here's three other guys who I want to talk about who their roles will likely be impacted in some way by the return of LeVert. The obvious one is Jeremy Lamb because, you're adding in a two guard. Somewhere else, a two guard has to lose minutes. So if they move Duarte to the bench, then Lamb is no longer the bench two guard. If they start Duarte, then Justin Holiday moves down. How do they sort out the second unit on the wing there? Because maybe they want to do Justin Holiday and O'Shea or Justin Holiday and Torrey Craig. I don't know. So Jeremy Lamb is certainly a guy who could be losing minutes here. And looking at his minutes by game is interesting. He started at 24 and he closed against the Hornets despite not playing well. Then he went to 23, a little less than 24. Then he went down to 17. Then he went down to 15, right? So he's gone down in minutes every game, it seems like, as Carlisle tries to figure out exactly what he wants out of his players. Torrey Craig, same story as Lamb. He went from 29 to 12 to 11 to 6.5, right? So same kind of deal where as Carlisle figures out what he has with his guys and how he wants to organize the troops, they have lost minutes. And O'Shea Brissett went from 0 to 8 to 31.5 to 22. So he's kind of gone up in favor in Carlisle's eyes. So to me, maybe I'm overthinking 4 games of an NBA rotation, but it seems like the two guys who are most likely to lose either their role completely or significant time would be either Torrey Craig or Jeremy Lamb, because Carlisle already seems to kind of be tuning their minutes down or changing the role that they're in. So how that would look, and I'm actually going to take a stab guess here and say that Torrey Craig is probably the biggest loser of minutes with LeVert returning, because either way, if it's Duarte or Holiday who loses their starting spot, I just talked about it. They can both play the 3, right? And in camp, it was a big thing for Carlisle that Craig was playing the 3 and 4, while O'Shea Brissett was only playing the 4. So Craig could play the 4 and they bump O'Shea out, but it seems like given the last 2 games and the minutes those 2 games that Carlisle already figured out that O'Shea can give the Pacers more than Torrey Craig can. So while Lamb has certainly struggled at times this season, especially defensively, was really weak on offense against the Hornets, it seems likely that the 3 spot's going to be open for sure on the second unit between Duarte or Holiday in a way that the 2 might not be, or you're having to get creative to get minutes at the 2. So while Lamb's minutes could go down as another 2 guard naturally infuses into the team, it makes more sense to me that your second unit could be TJ McConnell, Jeremy Lamb, Justin Holiday, O'Shea Brissett, for example, or Justin Holiday, Torrey Craig. So I think Carlisle's got O'Shea over Torrey right now. His rotation is kind of tweaked and changed every game, so it could be a matchup thing in general, and that's something that Carlisle's very good at. But just going off of consensus, averaging minutes played and then figuring out where to go from there, it seems like the guy who could be either completely out of the rotation or reduced to a bit role from LeVert's return would be Torrey Craig, just given the way his minutes have trended this season and how the team has used him. And that's kind of what I guessed before the season, is he'd be a guy kind of on the fringes of the rotation, depending on how the team ranked him. But I could also see the team, if Duarte is the guy who moves to the second unit, maybe Jeremy Lamb's the guy who loses his minutes. And then they go with, McConnell, Duarte, and then, Craig, O'Shea is your second unit because Justin Holiday's starting. That's possible too, right? That's another option. But both of those kind of keep O'Shea in, and that's an assumption for me because his minutes have been climbing, whereas Lamb's and Torrey Craig's have been falling. But I don't know how Carlisle sees the situation, and maybe it's a fit thing that he sees that I don't that makes it someone else completely different than what I'm saying. But it seems like the natural progression to LeVert joining the rotation is Jeremy Lamb as a two guard will lose some minutes, and then because either Duarte or Holiday will no longer be starting and they will move to the bench, the guy they replace with that second unit at the three or wherever could also be losing time. And O'Shea plays enough four that I think he will lose minutes, but not as much, because Justin Holiday can play 3-4, so can Torrey Craig. So we'll find out a lot when he does return. It might not even happen against the Raptors, but certainly worth talking about and monitoring how the rotation shakes out now that LeVert's return is coming very soon. Certainly going to be a big factor on the team, and I'll be fascinated to see how Carlisle makes those decisions. And he has already shown that he's willing to change things up that aren't working, right? Went to O'Shea quickly after a short rotation in the first game, tried Brad Wanamaker in that second game when he needed to, go for a spark, tried Isaiah Jackson against the Heat when he needed a spark, went to Goga with foul trouble. Like every game has been some sort of story about a player that he's played, a rotation choice he's gone to. So maybe he isn't rigid at all, and I'm just making stuff up here. But it seems like, just thinking intuitively about where the minutes could go, a lot of the guys who are established will continue to play a lot, maybe in a slightly different role to infuse LeVert, and then a few guys on the back of the bench could see their roles diminished or completely removed. They have a game tonight and I don't know if LeVert's going to play. I want to analyze this Raptors game separate of that announcement, that big news from Pacers practice today. So let's look ahead at Pacers Raptors tonight. But first, of course, it's Locked On Pacers. I got to talk to you guys about the great folks over at Built Bar because they are making the best tasting protein bars ever. And they're not just saying that, they mean it. They're 100% covered in chocolate, soft and easy to chew protein bars that are healthy. They have something for everybody, and they come in so many delicious flavors that if you don't like the first one you try, the second one you try, you'll love it. And they have a mixed package with 9 of their more popular flavors. You can also get boxes with just your favorite flavors in them. Again, something for everybody. I mean that. You can try the variety package if you don't like the same flavor every time, or you can get my favorite peanut butter brownie, just that in a box. There's so much good stuff there. And again, they're healthy. 17 to 18 grams of protein. Calories range from 130 to 180. Only 4 to 5 grams of sugar. Only 4 to 5 grams of net carbs. They're all awesome flavors. They're all tasty. They're all healthy. And they're the official protein bar of the U.S. track and field team, which is pretty sweet. Go to Built.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15 when you check out. You'll get 15% off your order. That promo code is LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Pacers, Raptors. For the first time this season, Pacers did pretty well against the Raptors last season. The Raptors in an interesting spot, no longer having Kyle Lowry to make them a very good team. Last year, I throw out everything you know about the Raptors from last year. They weren't playing in their home towns. COVID hit that team pretty hard. They lost a key assistant coach in Nate Bjorkgren, who is now back. By the way, Nate Bjorkgren will get to see his former team for the first time. I'll be absolutely fascinated to see if there's any interactions between him and any players, given how last year went. That's a very minor subplot of this game. Forget about the Raptors from last year. Basically, think of the Raptors from probably 2 years ago that made the second round of the playoffs, and then subtract Kyle Lowry and Pascal Siakam. Kyle Lowry now with the Heat. Pascal Siakam recovering from the left shoulder injury he had last season that he had surgery on. He will not play, right? So the Raptors down their 2 best players from the team that you most recently saw that was actually good, but they're getting a lot of good minutes out of Fred VanVleet. Defensively, his offense has been a little weak this year. He's only shooting 37% from the field. OG Anunoby poised for a breakout this year. Same deal. Getting up good shots, shooting a ton of threes, both him and VanVleet are, but not quite finishing in general from everywhere as well as you would like. And they have an exciting rookie in Scotty Barnes, who is shooting well from the field and is a wonderful defensive player already after 4 games. So the Raptors are fun, right? They're just a fun squad developing, right? 4 starters under 25 years old, and OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes, Gary Trent Jr., and Precious Achiuwa. So I am fascinated by, Trent didn't start one game. They started Dragic, but they quickly remedied that. So they're an interesting team. Their second unit is a bunch of young, unproven dudes, but the Raptors are a fascinating team that presents some unique challenges for the Pacers. However, I want to flip and stop talking about the Raptors for a second and talk about that the Raptors don't have a post presence that they've had in the past. Even Aaron Baines, for all the things he lacked for the Raptors last year, was at least like a big dude who could kind of get physical with guys, and he actually hit some threes against the Pacers this year. The Raptors centers now, Precious Achiuwa, again, he's a young guy. The Heat picked him in the first round 2 years ago. He's good, but he's also 6'8", 225, right? He's not really like a center that's going to scare Sabonis if that matchup becomes a situation. Sometimes Kem Birch is in for them at center. He's 6'9", 233. Again, a good player, not someone who really scares you guarding Sabonis. Chris Boucher could give Sabonis a little bit of trouble because he's really long, and he could give Turner a little bit of trouble, but he's 6'9", 200. He's also very skinny, right? Whereas Sabonis is 6'11", 240, much stronger, can establish himself. And the Raptors don't have the same level of defensive centers that they've had in the past. That's where I think the Pacers can get some nice advantages against this Toronto team is inside. Remember how they were playing against the Hornets early? They were really pounding Sabonis. They went away from that. That caused them to lose that game and give up that huge run to Charlotte. I think a lot of the offense that was working for the Pacers in that game could again be successful against this Raptors team. And another reason I'm kind of focused on Sabonis is Van Vliet's a good guard defender, right? Whoever he is on. If LeVert plays, maybe it's LeVert. Maybe he's on Brogdon. Maybe he's on Duarte. I don't know. But he's a good defender. He'll make their life hard. OG Anunoby is a fantastic defender. Whoever he's on, their life will be hard. Scotty Barnes already proving to be a decent defender against good players. Again, rookie defenders, I talked about this with Duarte earlier, are good, especially on ball, but not always perfect defenders, whatever. Scotty Barnes has been good on defense. Whoever he guards will have a tough time. So the interior battle is going to be important for the Pacers because that's probably their easiest chance to get advantages in starters versus starter situations. The Raptors are no slouches, right? They are 1-3, but they hung tough with the Bulls. They hung tough with the Mavs. They beat the snot out of the Boston Celtics, who are trying to be good this year, right? So outside of their opening night stinker to the Washington Wizards, the Raptors have played pretty well, given their record. So I think that they can actually put up some tough matchups, starters versus starters, against the Pacers outside of that interior battle. And if the Pacers can't get that advantage, a key here is going to be the second unit, because you look at Toronto's second unit. I talked about Birch. Birch is a good player, pretty underrated in the NBA in general for his physicality, but his size isn't quite there. Maybe Turner can bully him with second units. Maybe Sabonis could as well. Dragic getting old, not playing well so far this year. He has been a Pacers killer historically, so I don't want to write him off as a guy who could be effective for the Raptors in this game, but perhaps losing effectiveness as he ages. Svi Mikhailuk, fantastic shooter, terrible defender, right? So he could be a swing guy in this game. If he just makes a bunch of threes, the Raptors' second unit could look great. If he's not hitting his threes, he could look like a big negative for them. Chris Boucher, I talked about, is pretty good. And Delano Banton, a younger first-year player for them. He's only 22. He's Canadian rookie for this Raptors team. He's been a backup point guard for them. Unproven, it's kind of hard to say what he can bring to this team, but opportunities for guys. They don't have any star perimeter defenders with that second unit. So whoever it is, Duarte, if LeVert plays, Duarte will be more second unit, presumably. LeVert, Lamb, whoever it is creating for themselves with that second unit could have a nice game. Lamb always plays well against Toronto for his whole career. McConnell's going to have to be making guys move, making that group have to defend. And that's where the Pacers could really get this game going, is their second unit. And the Pacers' second unit has kind of struggled this year. So this could be an opportunity for that group to get some chemistry, get going. McConnell always takes some time with a new system and team to really figure it all out. He'll have some more familiar pieces if LeVert's back. And he's definitely getting more familiar with the system as the season goes on. Took some more shots around the basket in that game against the Bucks. That's something I did notice, and something he was going away from earlier this season. So he could be a key guy in this game. McConnell could, if he can really jazz up that second unit, get stuff going. That will be important. And then I think the Pacers defensively, they just got to keep the Raptors on the perimeter. They like to shoot threes. The Raptors, they've taken the 20, not the Raptors in general. They're 20th in the league in threes, but their percentage is very poor, below 30% so far. Maybe they're due, but the guys who are taking them, Van Vliet and Anunoby, good shooters, but they don't have the guys to set them up as well. They're going to shoot a ton. They're averaging 15 attempts combined per game, those two. It's going to be key for the Pacers to not let them get open. They've struggled with 3-point defense this year. The Pacers have, making sure those guys are uncomfortable and not hitting and keeping the Raptors offense the way it has been important. Now let's look at this key stat for the Raptors that I think could end up defining this game beyond any one matchup that I've talked about. They're first in the league in offensive rebounds, and they're first in the league in total rebounds as a result. Scotty Barnes, almost 4 offensive rebounds a game. Kem Birch is at 3. Precious Achiuwa is at 3, right? They like to crash the offensive board to get more possessions. And the Pacers have been a better rebounding team this year than in any years past, right? They're 8th in the league in rebounds, 8th in defensive rebounds. That could be a key battle. If the Raptors get a bunch of offensive rebounds and win this possession battle, they could be looking good. Even if their offense has struggled to put shots in the basket on terms of percentage of shots, they shoot a lot of shots. They're 8th in 2-point attempts for a reason. So that's going to be key for the Pacers in this game to me. Can they do well on the glass? Can their guards do well on the glass? Maybe that's a reason to play Torrey Craig in this game. He's a good rebounder. Duarte's been a good rebounder. Can their guards continue to do well on the glass? And I know a lot of the guys I said who are getting good rebounds for the Raptors are bigs. Of course, Miles Turner, Sabonis, it's going to be key for them to be grabbing those boards as well. This is a big game for the Pacers. If they can, this sounds simple. The Raptors aren't as good this year as in years past, and the Spurs stink, right? If the Pacers can go undefeated against the Raptors and Spurs in the next 6 days, even if they lose to the Nets on Friday, they'll be 4-4 after their first 8 games. That's kind of suitable given how tough the Pacers' early schedule is and pretty important. So beating a Raptors team that this Pacers squad is better than on paper would be really important for the Pacers. And I talked about that with the Hornets game and the Wizards game. These close games, when your early season schedule is hard and you're dealing with injuries, it's really important you try to win these ones. So the Pacers, it'd be really great if they could step on it and beat this Toronto team, get their first road win of the year, get on track ahead of a tough weekend back-to-back with Brooklyn and then Toronto again at home on Saturday. So important game. I think the Pacers can win. I think they have the tools to do so, the coaching to do so, and perhaps if LeVert returns, the roster to do so. Although, again, there could be kinks with him returning. So important game. We'll see if the Pacers can pull it off. We'll talk all about what happens on tomorrow's show. And Locked On Raptors host Sean Woodley and I, because the Pacers play again this weekend, will likely be doing a podcast together sometime later this week. So be on the lookout for that. You can follow me on Twitter at TEastNBA and this podcast at Locked On Pacers. And we're on YouTube as well if you want to see the lovely mustache I referred to at the beginning of the show. The next goal, if we get to 500 subs, I will wear. I have a bunch of actual basketball jerseys from my childhood. Larry Bird, Peja Stojakovic, both in kids' sizes. I'll wear those for a show. I'll look hilarious. They'll be super tight. So if you can get to 500 subs, that'd be awesome. Thank you guys a ton for listening, and we will see you tomorrow.